Problems with a keyboard can stem from many different things. Maybe the keyboard just needs cleaning, or maybe the cables are damaged. But one thing we can do is ask a few questions. Number one, does the device work in situations other than the current one? In other words, if we're working on an application and the keyboard does not seem to be functioning well within that application, then what happens if we try another application? If we can get the keyboard to work in another application, then we've isolated it to the application and not to the keyboard. So we can just try to do something else to make sure that we're isolating the problem to the keyboard. Second question is, has the device ever worked at all? In other words, if you're in charge of rejuvenating an old computer for someone and we're having a problem with the keyboard, then the question would be, does that keyboard really work, or has it worked in quite a while? So a good thing to do in this case would be to replace the keyboard with one from another computer that we know does work. And that way we'll be able to narrow it down and isolate the problem to the keyboard itself. Another component in which we can change out the component and isolate the problem is a monitor. When we troubleshoot a monitor problem, the first thing that we need to do is to take a look at all the monitor settings. If we have a problem with a monitor and for example, there's no picture on the monitor, the first thing we need to do is check to make sure that the brightness and the contrast are in their center positions. If they're in their center positions, then we should be able to see something if that monitor is functioning properly. But if they're turned all the way down, we could have a completely dark monitor and the monitor would be just fine, except for the fact that the settings are wrong. We can also make sure that the correct drivers are installed in the monitor settings. We could change the video driver if need be. We can return to VGA settings if we have a problem with, we put a driver in and now we can't see anything. We can return back to the VGA settings by starting the computer in safe mode, and that way we'll have just the VGA settings. We could also change the driver to return to the VGA settings, but starting the computer in safe mode to go in and make a change is an easier way. And then, as we said, another good thing to do to determine whether a problem is being caused by a video card or by a monitor is to substitute the monitor. If we substitute the monitor from another computer that we know is working, and that monitor works on our computer, then we know that our video card is just fine and it's the monitor that's the problem. If we take the monitor that's on our computer that is not working and put that onto the computer that we know was working and it still doesn't work, then we've really narrowed that down to just the monitor. So what we want to do is isolate the problem by switching out the components that we know are good with components that we know are bad or that we suspect are bad, in order to make sure that we know which component is actually causing the problem. In our next section, we'll talk about troubleshooting printers, which can also be a challenge.